him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk him off. Chris Taylor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Matthew Moreno, and joining me for tonight's winter meeting special, if you will, are Daniel Starkand and Sebastian Ibarra. Daniel, it's been a busy day for you over on the Dodger side. You and Jeff recorded a couple videos this morning, posted one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Now here you are at night, and the Lakers are coming off a win too, so it's not even like you're trying to escape that.
That's right, and the Rams as well. So it's been a crazy 24 hours or so. I honestly, though, I will say, like, since we recorded those videos this morning, things have kind of slowed down. Like, I thought once Soto signed, the floodgates would kind of open, but that really, that hasn't really happened yet. But it's still early. I guess we got all week for the winter meetings.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get some Teoscar Hernandez news while we're on this live stream with everybody, and just that's kind of a little bit of a tease. We will be discussing Teoscar tonight. I know I saw the chat going already, kind of kicking around some possibilities. We're also going to get into Mookie Betts going back to shortstop, which we sort of knew it was going to be the infield again in 2025. It was unclear if it would be second base or shortstop. We got some clarity from Brandon Gomes today. But before we get into all that, Sebastian, we haven't had a chance to get you on with us recently. Wanted to just kind of, pick your brain kind of as not short, but you don't need to spend a ton of time on it. The Juan Soto stuff. Obviously, the Dodgers were involved. We saw what he ended up signing with the Mets, 15 years, $765 million, potentially $805 million if things sort of break a certain way, depending on his opt-out clauses and all that. But what's your reaction just to, one, the Dodgers kind of pursuing that opportunity, and two, where his contract ended up?
Yeah, I like how they drew the line. They had like 600, reportedly, right? 600 million was kind of like their limit. And that makes sense, right? Like, you don't not go after a guy like Juan Soto if you could get him and if he's willing to come for 600 million and like for the culture and stuff like that. You do that. But I'm busy. I was trying to ignore him. So you do that, if you're the Dodgers, but for the Mets, it's a crazy price tag. But when they've had a crazy couple of years, they missed the playoffs in 2023. That's really when they went all in. They weren't expecting to do anything this season, and they somehow made the playoffs. And when you feel like you're missing piece away from like being a contender and stuff, like you're willing to overpay for talent when you need like that talent. So I kind of think that's where the Mets heads were at on that. So, it's not my money, so who am I to say?
Yeah, and Steve Cohen certainly has a lot of it to throw around it. And, it is what I have found interesting, and I know that we're not going to spend a ton of time on Juan Soto because it's done with. There hasn't been a lot of the Mets are ruining baseball tweets going around, which is a little strange because Juan Soto just signed the largest contract in North American sports history, doesn't have deferred money. He's getting all of that up front. Maybe that's the difference. Maybe the other fans and people that cover the sports, certain writers and reporters, maybe they want the Dodgers to stop deferring money and just pay it up front, and that's the issue. But hey, so it goes. Soto's a Met. Time to move on. We agree. As I mentioned, we're going to get to a bunch of topics tonight. The first one that we're starting with is Brandon Gomes revealing and / confirming that Mookie Betts is moving back to shortstop for the 2025 season. Mookie shifting back into the infield was something that Gomes revealed at the GM meetings in November. He also then sort of hedged it by saying like that was the plan, but it wasn't set in stone. The Dodgers also didn't specify, or Gomes or for Andrew Friedman didn't specify whether Mookie would be playing second base or shortstop. We've discussed kind of the different possibilities and the kind of the domino effects on what would be if he moved to both of those. Obviously, Gavin Lux sort of being the biggest one. I think with news that Mookie is going to be playing shortstop, Gavin Lux is certainly a beneficiary. Daniel, what was your kind of immediate reaction when Brandon Gomes revealed this information today at the winter meetings?
I'd say my immediate reaction is we don't always need to take everything at face value. Like, they've said stuff at the winter meetings in the past that ended up not being true. And I think we still have a lot of the offseason to go. And who knows? They could end up signing a shortstop and trading Gavin Lux next week for all we know. Like, you know, we don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. But I do think if, let's say, you know, it is true and that's where Mookie ends up, I don't think it's as like, you know, as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. Like, I know he wasn't great at shortstop last year. That was, you know, remember he found out that was happening like, you know, a week before the season started or whatever. Like, it's not like he had a full off season to work out there the way he does now. And I just think, like, you know, the fact that, you know, it's Mookie Betts at the end of the day, and he works as hard as anyone, and he's willing to do whatever. So I know, like, he'll put 100% of what he's got into playing shortstop. And I do think, like, he's not going to be a Gold Glover or anything, but I do think he could be passable there. Like, my personal preference, I think second base would make the most sense just because he's comfortable there. There's less wear and tear on the body. And I just think, like, he's been willing to move around, and that's great. Like, you know, there's not many superstars that are willing to do that, but I just, like, don't think, like, you can't keep doing that forever. Like, I think eventually he's got to settle into one spot, and my preference would be second base. But right now there's not an obvious shortstop option. So, you know, barring a move, you know, this offseason, it's not like they have, you know, an everyday shortstop. Like, Miggy Rowe could play there some of the time, you know, Tommy Edman could play there some of the time. But you know, if you still have Lux on the roster, obviously he's not going to move over to short. So with the way things are currently constructed, I think that's probably the best alignment. But I still think we got to wait and see what moves, if any, are made. And then, you know, when spring training rolls around, we could really see, you know, who's where.
Yeah, and real quick, before we continue, I do want to ask everybody, if you are with us live right now watching this and you're on YouTube, please be sure to hit the like button on this, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. We have a bunch of content planned for everybody throughout the week, and we want to make sure that you're missing it. We're up to over 1,200 tonight on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, so thank you, everybody, for joining us. Sebastian, where do you fall on Mookie going to the Dodgers deciding that Mookie's going to be playing shortstop? At least, as Daniel said, like, we kind of have to take it at face value right now. Things could certainly change, but as of now, that looks to be the plan.
Yeah, obviously, I agree with Daniel where I feel second makes so much more sense in comparison. You know, he's one, like he said, he's something familiar with, but I'm just saying, repeating what Daniel's saying, it is like a lot of less wear and tear on his body. But I was looking at, like, kind of our roster, and they really have no, like, this has been a problem for like a couple of years now, where they don't have like Gavin Lux. They were like it looks like they're really all in on him. And when that succession plan kind of failed, they really had no backup plan in place. Like, looking at the organization, like Alex Freeland, you know, he's a shortstop, but and anything could happen. Maybe he could develop into a starter, but really his realistic ceiling is like a utility man, where, you know, he's playing all over the infield, maybe the outfield, most of the infield. Maybe he develops into a starter, but realistically more of a utility guy. And I was looking at the first round pick in 2024. Kellen Lindsay becomes like a really important pick now, because they really need to have some kind of plan for after, you know, maybe Betts at shortstop maybe would be good for like 2 years at the most. That'd be where I'm comfortable with. Like, that first round pick becomes really important, where they need him to kind of develop into their long-term starter, because he has the highest ceiling, the most long-term potential.
Yeah, you guys both hit on kind of some of the points that I want to focus on. One of them being Sebastian, and as you just, you know, outlined, the Dodgers don't have a clear-cut answer. And yes, Daniel, you mentioned Miguel Rojas. Could he start there? Certainly. Can you trust him there? Absolutely. But the Dodgers, every year that they've had Miguel Rojas since he's been back with the team, their plan has never been for him to be an everyday player. Injuries and circumstances have dictated that for him. And credit to Rojas for embracing that and taking on that role and doing well. But then also, he ended the 2024 season hurt as well and needed to have sports hernia surgery. And he is, you know, the fact of the matter is, he is a veteran, and he's closer to the end of his career than the start of it. And so, you know, the Dodgers have been mindful about his workload. So I don't really see a scenario where, and I think that's part of why Mookie is playing shortstop, where I don't think the Dodgers want Miguel Rojas starting 140 some odd games this next season. I do agree with you guys. I don't want us to sound like a complete broken record. I do agree with you guys. Like Mookie, I think what's interesting is I feel like in terms of roster, like making the decision, sorry, let me start over. Where this has always started for me and with Mookie is when the Dodgers first planned to move him to the infield, it was, hey, we have him signed to this long-term contract. We want to preserve his body, this and that. Made sense. Second base made sense. Obviously, spring training, they're in a pinch. Gavin Lux was struggling to get kind of reacclimated at shortstop, if that's how you want to look at it. And so they flipped him. I looked at it as just, a quick fix for this past season. I sort of feel like that's what we're in right now because I don't see, to me, the things don't match up. And Daniel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or you could share your thoughts, where the Dodgers on one hand can't say we want to preserve Mookie's body and his health for the rest of his contract, and then turn around and say, well, he's also going to be our starting shortstop.
Yeah,
for at least multiple years. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. For at least
you're
multiple
good.
years. Like maybe it is just 2025, like Sebastian said. Maybe it is 2 years even. But I don't see this being like a long-term solution. I don't. That's not viable to me.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I think like shortstop is probably like outside of catcher, like is probably the toughest position on your body, just because not only are you diving for balls, left and right, you're involved in pretty much everything, whether you're the cutoff man, like covering a base, so you're just always doing something. So if that is the goal, to preserve his body, then second base would be a much easier fit there. Obviously the throw is shorter as well, which, like, defensively, I would say Mookie was getting to balls pretty well at short last year, but the throws were kind of the issue. So I do think, like, if he is at shortstop, I would expect him, like I was saying earlier, like, not to be a Gold Glover, but I do think he would be an improved version of what he was last year. So he would be passable there. So it's not like, the Dodgers it's going to be a huge, like, disadvantage having Mookie at short. Like, I think with his offensive production and at least maybe being average at shortstop, like, that's still one of the most valuable players in the league right there. But if the goal is to preserve his body, then he's definitely not your long-term answer at shortstop. Like you guys were saying, like, if it's for a year or two, like, fine, but it's not like there's that Corey Seager type prospect who, like, hey, in 2 years, that's going to be our shortstop for the next 5-6 years. Like, like Sebastian was saying, they have a couple guys, Freeland, the draft pick from last year, but you can't bank on any of those guys. And the Dodgers haven't exactly developed a ton of hitters in recent years. Like, we've talked about that on the show before. So right now there is no long-term answer at shortstop. So if Mookie is, a stopgap and maybe they're going to sign Bo Bichette, next winter or something, then that, like, it's fine. But if it's Mookie's our shortstop for the next 7 years, I don't think that's a good plan.
Yeah, and as we're discussing this, the chat is throwing out Blake Trinan at shortstop, Decoy, Max Muncy. Yeah, it's getting a little unhinged early tonight. Sebastian, I agree with Daniel. I think Mookie and Dave Roberts did say it today during his media availability at the winter meetings, that Mookie has spent the offseason preparing for this change. And so it is certainly going to be different than what we saw in spring training, when I think it was either like 12 or 13 days before the Dodgers opened in South Korea when they made that change. So yes, the extra time can help him prepare. What I still am not sure of is Mookie going to one issue that arose this past season, was all the extra work Mookie was having to do before games because he was trying to get himself to be at a, passable, or in probably not for him passable, but meet his expectations of playing that position and the bar that he had set for himself. I'm inclined to believe that same work ethic is going to apply this to next season. And there was a lot of discussions at the time that extra work is potentially wearing on him physically and impacting him at the plate. Do you think that's going to, we might see a repeat of that, or will the off-season training, getting to do a full, few months of it, and then in spring training kind of offset some of that next year?
Yeah, I've never tried to learn a position at like a major league level. But you got to think a whole offseason. Like he definitely improved a lot from where he started, obviously, in spring training throughout the year. You got to think with the whole, offseason, to get more acquainted, get more training in. He won't have to devote as much time to, during the season. So maybe that'll help. And, players are going to admit like, oh yeah, this all this training I'm doing to get ready is affecting my hitting. So you don't really know for sure, but maybe with like a longer sample size, we'll see. But I'm not like extremely worried about his ability to stay effective at the plate. I think it's just going to be one of those things where time's going to tell.
Yeah, I agree. All right. That's kind of let's table the Mookie conversations. I'm sure there'll be actually one last thing. Daniel, to your point, and I'm seeing. I did see some comments earlier saying Mookie wasn't good at shortstop, this and that. Daniel, you brought up the good point of Mookie's issue wasn't like getting to like he was like his range was there back like to his left to his glove side to going to his right. It was throwing to first base, which is what has been the issue. Like just learning the different arm angles, and so hopefully, getting that stuff ironed out this offseason. Maybe will allow him to be a little bit more free heading into spring training, heading into the regular season, and we don't necessarily see him needing to do as much extra work, and then potentially running the risk of wearing himself down physically. Before we move on, Blake Williams, who some of you may or may not know, he wants to know if Joey Gallo can play shortstop because, as Blake has continued to remind us over the past couple of weeks, Joey Gallo is a free agent.
Is he asking for his beer league softball team? Because I think that would be a nice fit for Joey Gallo at this point in his career.
Yeah, perhaps. We'll have to get some clarification from Blake. Maybe Blake him and Scott are scheduled to do Thursday night's live show. So maybe Blake can set aside, some good 5 minutes, solid 5 minutes to go into Joey Gallo and why he needs to be signed, whether to be shortstop or an outfielder. Hey, depending on what happens with Teoscar Hernandez by then, maybe Blake will really be pushing the Joey Gallo propaganda.
Oh, man.
Our next topic is Shohei Ohtani, and I see Francisco Diaz. He's asking for updated news on Teoscar Hernandez. We are going to get to that, so definitely stick with us. That is coming. We have a couple other things. We want to focus on kind of the stuff that we know for certain at this point before diving into the rumors and the speculation from the first full day of the winter meetings out there in Dallas. But if you missed it today, Dave Roberts, one of the topics he discussed, and again, not a real surprise, was that Shohei Ohtani won't be ready to pitch, unfortunately, when the Dodgers start the season out in Tokyo. It wasn't specified. I'm assuming that it is related to, well, actually, I don't think it is so much related to Ohtani's left shoulder surgery that he had after the World Series, so much as it is that Dave Roberts said, the Dodgers, they haven't come out and stated that there's an innings limit, but he did say it would be hard to envision Ohtani pitching, in late March, or I guess that's almost the middle of March when they're opening up out there, and remaining on the mound the entire way through the season through October. The Dodgers obviously have visions of repeating as World Series champions. Sebastian, is there any? I mean, I don't even know if there's concern. What's your kind of immediate thoughts to Ohtani being limited to a DH when the Dodgers are going to be out in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to lose a little bit of the spectacle, obviously. Yeah. That's really only the main thing. If it becomes a bigger issue, like if it becomes he's not going to be available for like the beginning of the season, maybe it becomes a bigger deal. But right now, it's just purely like, yeah, it's kind of just a bummer. You'd really like to. I'm sure he'd love to do that too. It'd be pretty awesome for him. But right now, not that huge of a deal. It's a bummer, but it's a two. Actually, how many games is it? Is it going to be a two-game series?
Yeah, 2 games.
It's going to be a 2-game series. It'll be fun for what it is, and then get on with the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's 2 games against the Cubs. Before that, I think they're playing 2 exhibition games, or maybe 3. Yeah, I think it's the same as what they did with when they were in South Korea, whereas the 2 exhibition and then 2 for the regular season. Daniel, I saw you sort of nodding along as I alluded to, kind of an innings limit. I imagine there's no real surprise here. And as Sebastian said, the biggest loss, if you will, is that Ohtani's not going to get to pitch for a major league team in his home country. I mean, I think does it just put pressure on him to deliver as a DH?
I mean, he's shown that he'll come through when the pressure's on, especially when he's playing for or in Japan. He's going to want to put on a show no matter what. And I'm pretty sure like all indications are that he will be able to hit by then at least. So at least he should be in the lineup. But yeah, I don't think it would make any sense to pitch him that early if we're being honest. Like you want him fresh and healthy down the stretch, and he's coming off elbow surgery. Like, he's not going to throw 180 innings, 200 innings this season. Like, it's just not going to happen. So, if the plan is 120 to 140 innings, then, he's probably not going to pitch until maybe like the end of April even, like I wouldn't be surprised if it's like similar to kind of how they handled Walker Buehler last year in his last year. Like, you could slow play him. There's no rush really. We'll see what other moves they make as far as, starting pitching depth goes. But in theory, they should have enough guys to at least get through the first month of the season. So they could allow Shohei to kind of take his time and have him for the second half. So, we'll see who ends up getting the nod in those Japan games. Like, part of me just wants to throw out like Landon Knack and, someone else just like to just save our guys, just because there's the travel and then they come back and there's more exhibition games. Then there's another opening day. Like, it's just a lot, but I do think, Yamamoto will probably pitch. Like, he'll want to pitch in Japan, so he'll get one of the games, and then maybe Blake Snell, pitches the other. So I guess that's the good thing, is it's only 2 games. So it's not like, even if Ohtani was ready to go, that early in the year, like, you don't need him in Japan just because it's 2 games, and you should have other guys that are ready to go. So I trust whatever plan they'll have in place. And yeah, you just hope that it doesn't become a thing where it's like the All-Star break and he's still not pitching. But if it's like end of April, early May, then I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Well, I can't believe you just skipped over Roki Sasaki starting for the Dodgers.
That's true. We'll see.
Yeah, I think obviously if that's where the Dodgers end up, if they end up signing Roki, it'll be interesting to see how they sort of handle him, because he'll be like Yamamoto, right, where it's his first season at the major league level, obviously. But the Dodgers did start Yamamoto in South Korea, and so maybe they would feel comfortable, saying Roki and Yamamoto, you guys take these 2 games. It obviously would be a great honor. It would, Sebastian mentioned, the spectacle of Ohtani not being able to take the mound, I think, would be offset, certainly, if those 2 guys are on the Dodgers and able to start. So yeah, it'll be something to watch. But the good news, I think the bigger point is there's not any reason for real concern with Ohtani's left shoulder surgery. He seems to be on track to be hitting, certainly by opening day out there in Japan. I imagine he'll play in a few spring training games the way he did earlier this year, how he kind of eased his way into things. So yeah, that's where that stands. Let's pause really quick. We have a super chat. Our first one of the night is from Saul. It says, should the Dodgers be interested in Kyle Tucker? Yeah, the Astros, I think it was their GM. I'm not sure. I think GM, right? Not president of baseball operations. Their general manager came out. His name is escaping me right now, so I apologize for that. But basically came out and said the Astros are willing to listen on any of their players. Kyle Tucker is due to be a free agent a year from now. Sebastian, is that something the Dodgers should maybe look into? They have a need for corner outfielders. We're going to get into Teoscar Hernandez. So obviously a Kyle Tucker trade would mean, in my opinion, no Teoscar Hernandez. Is that something the Dodgers should maybe look at, whether it's because Teoscar's moving on or they just decide to go in a different route themselves?
Yeah, it's obviously, like you said, it's dependent on, what happens with Teoscar. In a vacuum, you definitely inquire about him. You don't if the price is right, you do it. He's a great player in his own right. Obviously, Conforto doesn't really coming in this offseason. The Dodgers needed more than re-signing Teoscar. They needed more than that. Even maybe with Conforto, that doesn't prevent you from making a trade for Kyle Tucker. Again, in a vacuum, we don't really know. A lot of it is dependent on Teoscar, but he's a great player, and the Dodgers should be definitely calling the Astros if he's available.
Daniel, is this somebody you think the Dodgers should maybe look into trading for?
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good player, and it's kind of a similar situation to when the Dodgers dealt for Mookie, where it's like a superstar player who's going into the last year of his deal, and if the team's trading him, that they know they're just not going to re-sign him. He's going to command too much money or whatever the case may be. But the fact that it is only 1 year of team control means that it's not like you're giving up the whole farm, to get him. And obviously, it's still going to cost some level of prospects, and then of course if you're extending him or planning on re-signing him next year, it's going to be a big deal. And I know it's not going to be Juan Soto money, but Kyle Tucker is going to be the best guy available. And usually whoever the best guy available is, there's a bidding war and, teams are interested and the price gets pretty high. But the thing about trading for him is, and potentially extending him is you don't have to get into a bidding war. Like if you're willing to pay him what he's worth and he's interested, then maybe you could get a deal done. So it's definitely something, worth looking into. I think right now Teoscar is kind of the main focus. And then if you don't end up with him, then maybe you pivot that way. But yeah, I definitely think it's worth looking into. I'm not expecting it to happen or anything. And who knows? I don't know what Astros fans and Dodgers fans hate each other, but I can't imagine the front offices have any ill will. So I feel like they would make a deal if it was beneficial for both teams. So I would definitely look into it.
And one thing that I think we need to point out is, because I'm seeing a lot of angry comments, and I 100% get the sentiment. Kyle Tucker was not on that 2017 Astros team, so this wouldn't be Carlos Correa, this wouldn't be Alex Bregman, this wouldn't be Jose Altuve joining the Dodgers. I get he is still coming from that organization, so fine. But if there's any sort of silver lining, Kyle Tucker was not on that team. Certainly a talented outfielder in his own right. Yes, I think this being his final year of team control presents an interesting wrinkle from the standpoint of I don't think the Astros are going to completely give him away by any means. So if you're the Dodgers, you would have to find some balance, right? Of, okay, we're willing to give up this level of quality and quantity for somebody that we might only have for 1 year. The other thing for me, why I would sort of hesitate, is the lineup is extremely left-handed heavy right now. And if Teoscar Hernandez isn't back and Kyle Tucker is your answer, I feel like we're going to be sitting here at July at the trade deadline, and the Dodgers, I joke about it because every single year they seem to be looking for a right-handed hitter at the deadline. Maybe Ahmed Rosario will be available again, though. But that would be kind of my main holdup, and it's not a deal breaker by any means, but that is something that I would, maybe kind of give pause to, is, okay, does this make the most sense from a team standpoint? Just evaluating everything with it, what the Dodgers would have to trade, maybe needing a right-handed. If Teoscar Hernandez is not re-signed, then the Dodgers need a right-handed hitter, I think, at that point, in my opinion. But, that's there's different ways to look at that. Sal, thank you for that super chat. We have another one from David. It says, one of you, paint your wall a different color. Yeah, I guess.
Wait, hold on. I got it. It's okay. It's blue.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we'll have to see, David, what we could do maybe for the next time to get different colored wall. Maybe Sebastian will turn his laptop around. Thank you for those super chats, everybody. If you are on YouTube and you do want to do a super chat, we will stop, as you guys saw, we'll stop what kind of we're discussing, get to your topic or question as quickly as we can. Next for us is the Dodgers. It's a little surprising to me, sort of looking to make a big splash in their bullpen. It was reported by The Athletic that Tanner Scott and Devin Williams are two targets for the Dodgers. Tanner Scott obviously is a free agent. Devin Williams, strange contract situation with the Brewers where they declined their team option on him, but he is still under team control through arbitration, which I don't remember ever seeing. I didn't think that you could do something. I thought it was either or. And that decision is going, I guess Williams hasn't gone through arbitration yet, but the Brewers making that decision is financially driven, and it could save them, I think, maybe ultimately $300,000 or something like that, maybe $500,000, depending on where his salary ends up coming in. Sebastian, if you needed to choose between these two, and you could factor in everything, free agency, trade, all that, is there one or the other between Tanner Scott and Devin Williams that maybe interests you more?
Yeah, when you said choose, I'm like, oh man, can I not have them both? Devin Williams,
maybe.
Devin Williams has always been that guy. Whenever I'm playing the show or something, I always trade for him. He's been I've really liked him ever since this crazy 2020 year. His airbender, his changeup is so sick to me. He's a guy who's been really wanting the Dodgers to free if he ever hits free agency, or if he doesn't get traded, hits free agency, I would want the Dodgers to go after him. But I think if I had to choose, I'd probably go Tanner Scott, just because you get another lefty to pair with Vesia, and you're just killing it with your left-handed relievers. We got saw the Dodgers, and we got to saw it firsthand during the NLDS. He was on it. He was at 4 innings, 7 Ks. So if I had to choose between one, I'd probably go Tanner. And who knows? Devin Williams hits free agency. You could get him. So
you could end up having both of them at some point.
yeah, just gotta be patient, waiting here.
Real quick, I was looking away while Sebastian was speaking. I wasn't trying to ignore you. I was listening. Ken Rosenthal just sent out an update about Devin Williams. And in his article, he says he's attracting an overwhelming amount of interest on the trade market, with at least 10 teams contacting the Milwaukee Brewers about the star closer, league sources said. Rosenthal later names the Dodgers and Yankees are among the teams expressing interest in Williams. So certainly plenty of interest in him, as for a lot of the reasons Sebastian just highlighted. Daniel, is there one that Blake's telling us in the chat. Blake, listen to what I'm saying, guy. Take us off mute. Daniel, is there one of these relievers stick out to you more that you would want to see in the Dodgers bullpen?
Well, so first of all, what Rosenthal is saying is that all these other GMs play MLB The Show as well and trade for Devin Williams themselves, so that's why they're interested.
Yeah, they like the Airbender on the show, and so they want to see it in real life now.
Well, first of all, both of these guys are awesome pitchers. I just realistically, I don't see either of them being Dodgers, and I hate to pour like cold water on the fire here, but we've never seen the Dodgers like spend at the top of the market for relief pitchers, and Tanner Scott is one of the best relievers in baseball. We saw what he did to Shohei Ohtani in the playoffs. Like, yeah, it would be really nice having that guy on our side instead of potentially, facing him. But I just don't see the Dodgers, overpaying for someone like Tanner Scott. And pretty much the same thing with Devin Williams, just on the trade side. Like, we've seen the Dodgers find relievers for nothing pretty much, whether that be waiver claims, free agent signings, like under the radar type trades. And some of those guys have turned into their best relievers. So I don't think they're going to trade the farm for 1 year of Devin Williams. Like, if the price was low enough, they're definitely interested. But as we just heard from Kenny Rosenthal, if 10 teams are interested, then that price tag could get pretty high. And I don't know if the Dodgers are, going to be comfortable giving up top prospects for 1 year of Devin Williams, as good as he is. So I think overall the bullpen's in a really good spot right now. Like, they just brought back Treinen, and they probably need to add like 1 or 2 more guys, but they could be under the radar type guys, or maybe you have one more free agent signing, like similar to like money wise to Blake Treinen, like maybe a little less, like 1 year's $8 million or something like that, like they've done with guys in the past. But I haven't really seen the Dodgers trade the farm or hand out big money to a free agent reliever. So until it happens, I'm just not gonna believe it, I guess.
I will bring up, for Tanner Scott, this is the deferral age Dodgers. They're doing all kinds of stuff they haven't done in the past. So who knows?
That's a good point. I still was surprised by both of this. One, because I felt, and as we're seeing from Ken Rosenthal's report that I just relayed, if Devin Williams became available in the trade market, the interest would certainly be there, and the price then goes up considerably, right? Because then the Brewers can say, well, like, these are our demands. If you don't meet it, X team will, and that's where we'll end up sending him. Tanner Scott surprised me from the standpoint of the financial commitment, but like Sebastian said, these are the different Dodgers. They have Shohei Ohtani sponsorship money coming into the organization now. It's a new day. Still, for me, like, the last time Andrew Friedman spent big on a relief pitcher, if you want to count Joe Kelly, I guess he did get multi-year, but I go back to Kenley Jansen. And it made sense at the time, right? He was kind of at the peak of his game. They re-signed Kenley and Justin Turner in the same offseason. And then we saw what happened with Kenley. And it doesn't mean that every relief pitcher is going to struggle in some of the ways that Kenley did, obviously. But my running joke, and maybe it's something that I've just convinced myself of at this point, was Andrew Friedman spent once big time on a relief pitcher, and it got a little dicey there at the end. He's not about to do it again. I am seeing a lot of people in the chat saying Tanner Scott would neutralize Juan Soto. That could be a motivating factor. Daniel, as you said, we saw what he did to Shohei Ohtani. And Blake did also brought up a great point. Dave Roberts, when he was on Mookie Betts' podcast a few weeks ago and was setting his wish list for the offseason, he mentioned wanting, I forgot if Blake might have had the exact wording, but basically he alluded to Yeah, he said he wanted Blake Trinan back and another kind of high leverage relief pitcher. These two guys certainly fall under that umbrella. So maybe the Dodgers are looking to, just make a splat. They've already spent on Shohei Ohtani last year. And one thing Andrew Friedman did bring up again after Blake Snell's press conference was the kind of promise that, with Ohtani deferring his contract, the salary the way that he did was in exchange for kind of, a promise or a directive that the Dodgers were going to be aggressive in putting together these uber talented teams. And Friedman reiterated after Blake Snell's press conference that's something the Dodgers are taking seriously. That, they obviously did it this year and ended in the World Series, and they want to continue to sort of meet those expectations that have been set by both parties. So, yeah, I mean, everybody wants the Dodgers to go all in each year, right? So maybe this would be their version of it. As Sebastian said, it's the deferral age Dodgers, so it's a new approach. We have another super chat from David. It says, "Are we nervous about Teo not coming back?" We can just get into. I mean, is there anything you guys, either of you, any closing comments you guys might want to add on Devin Williams or Tanner Scott?
Okay, I think I pretty much said everything. Yeah.
Let's get into Teoscar then. Quickly, David, we're going to answer this kind of as we go along in our conversation. So thank you for this, and it was a nice little segue for us. I think the general assumption was once Juan Soto signed that Teoscar Hernandez's market would pick up pretty quickly and probably lead back to the Dodgers. There was a report recently indicating that the Dodgers and Teoscar were basically kind of at the finish line and just looking to finalize details on the contract. That was before Soto's decision was made, and it had already been looking relatively clear that the Dodgers weren't bidding as aggressively as some of the other teams ended up being, and of course he wound up with the Mets. Alden Gonzalez then reported, it was either late last night or early this morning in his article, that there was a big gap in negotiations between the Dodgers and Teoscar Hernandez. Now, I think that is certainly subject to interpretation. I took it as Teoscar's agent, and I expressed this on our show last night, Sunday night with Jeff, that seeing what Juan Soto got, obviously Teoscar Hernandez is not going to end up in that stratosphere, but in my opinion, Juan Soto ending up with the Mets was the worst case scenario for the Dodgers, because now you have the Red Sox and the Yankees who are both pretty motivated to figure out how they're going to pivot and keep their fans happy, start building their team after missing out on Juan Soto. And so with Alden's report, I kind of take this as being maybe Teoscar's agent has come back and said, look, like these are the terms we're sort of looking at, and it is skyrocketed. Like you start high and then you end up meeting somewhere in the middle, right? Kind of negotiating one-on-one, if you will. But Daniel, real quick, circling back to David's question, are you nervous in light of kind of the reports that have come out about Teoscar Hernandez not being re-signed?
Definitely a little nervous. Like we all felt pretty comfortable that he was going to come back, starting from the parade when he says how much he loves it and wanted to come back. And then all the reports we've seen have basically said the Dodgers. But like you just kind of broke down, Matt, like when these teams struck out on Juan Soto, that means they have a lot of money to spend elsewhere. And I know Teoscar is not Juan Soto's age, not his caliber of player, but he's probably the next best option that's out there. Like Santander's the other one, but for some reason these teams don't seem to have nearly as much interest in him as Teoscar. So Teoscar definitely has, these other interested teams. And with that, the price gets driven up. Like, I think if you're willing to spend $700 million for Juan Soto, like, I think you could talk yourself into adding an extra $5 million a year for 4 years, for Teoscar, just because that's still like a fraction of what you'd be paying Soto. So I think with the Dodgers, it's probably more about the years than like the AAV, I would say. Like, if the Dodgers could get Teoscar back on a 3-year deal, like, I think they would probably be fine, like upping the AAV a little bit. But I do think they're probably a little skeptical to go to that 4th or maybe even a 5th year. Who knows what these teams are offering. So I think that could potentially be the holdup. And part of that is because I know Jeff was tweeting about this earlier. Like, the Dodgers DH spot is locked up for the next decade. And if you're these other teams, you could afford to give Teoscar that extra year because, like, he could go play left field for 2 years and then he could become our DH for the last 2 or 3 years of that deal. And you could still get, positive value from him because of that. But if you're the Dodgers, he's going to be playing, left field the whole time. And The defense already isn't great. He's 32 years old, so it's only going to get worse moving forward. So if you had to ask me, just kind of reading the tea leaves, it feels like maybe an extra year might be the holdup, and we'll see at the end of the day. Like, is Teoscar willing to maybe take a little less to come back to the Dodgers where he said he wants to be, or is he just going to take the biggest deal that's offered to him, which might not be the Dodgers, from what we've seen.
Yeah, and Sebastian, before I come to you, I want to get to this comment from Elishiba Jones. It says, according to Dodgers writers, Dodgers can still sign Teoscar. Yes, they absolutely can. And I think we didn't see it too much last night on our live show Sunday. I did see a little bit on Twitter, like there was some confusion that and a mistaken belief that the Dodgers signing Michael Conforto maybe meant that they were out on Teoscar Hernandez. That is not the case. Conforto, 1 year, $17 million, like not going to impact anything with Teoscar Hernandez. The Dodgers went into the offseason needing multiple outfielders because we've discussed it several times, leading into free agency and since free agency has started. That's kind of a barren group right now. Yes, Tommy with Mookie Betts playing shortstop, as we mentioned earlier on tonight's show, that leaves Tommy Edman to primarily play center field. Andy Pages then can play one of the corner spots, potentially platooning with Michael Conforto, although I know Blake tweeted last night reasons why maybe Conforto could be more of an everyday player than people might be thinking. But yes, they can certainly still sign Teoscar Hernandez. It's not a matter of can they do it. I think it's a matter of will they? And at this point, what is Teoscar Hernandez's market? Sebastian, what is your kind of read on everything as we stand here now with, there are reports that Teoscar Hernandez has a certain affinity for Fenway Park and Red Sox manager Alex Cora in particular, and Boston was one of the teams that pursued him pretty strongly last year. Where do you see things maybe going?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Daniel where I was pretty confident, right after the season ended. Makes a lot of sense for both sides to get a deal done. But kind of as the offseason kind of chugs along, I'm getting a little bit more concerned just because, like you guys already brought up, the market is going to decide what he gets. And the only way I'd be upset with the Dodgers if they don't sign him is if I can't imagine they would. They lowball him, which I don't imagine they ever would. If they kind of, like you guys already brought up or Daniel brought up, if you're not comfortable accepting like a 3-year high AAV and you're doing all you can to sign him, then that'd be kind of fine. Boston is a much friendlier ballpark for him offensively wise. So, as I guess my answer would be like, I'm getting a little bit more worried, and we kind of just had to see where it ends up going.
Related to all of this, I thought this was a good question from Andre. He wants to know, would you go 4 years for $100 million for Teo, or is that too much? And that was something we kind of were kicking around a little bit before we started recording tonight. I was asking, is there a line that maybe you don't go past for Teoscar Hernandez given his age? Daniel, you cited Jeff and mentioning, some of the concerns over how he might, his hitting profile might look in a few years from now, and the Dodgers don't really have anywhere else to put him. Where is 4 years, $100 million? That's a $25 million AAV. I would imagine that this type of contract would include some deferred salary, which is the Dodgers. They already did it once with Teoscar Hernandez, so they would be paying him after paying him down the line. But 4 years, $100 million, is that too rich for you, or is that where you draw the line, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of right around where the line is. Like, what am I going to say? 490 is my cutoff, and then who cares about that extra 10 million? So I think I would probably do it. Like, ideally, you get them back for 3 years. Like, I think going to that 4th year is a bit of a stretch, just because I think his production is replaceable, and I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. And I love Teoscar. We all love Teoscar. He had a great, he had a great year here, but I think his production, like, you could go find the next Teoscar for a one similar to Conforto, like a 1 year, $18 million deal. And maybe you find a guy who's just as productive. Like, this isn't like a franchise cornerstone we're talking about here. So to me, I would prefer to not go to a 4th year, just because you're going to see the ramifications of that probably in starting with year 3, which is why, like, even a 3-year deal is kind of pushing it, but going to that 4th year, could be a bit much. But it's kind of the old thing, like it's not my money, so I really don't care at the end of the day. Like if we got news right now that Teoscar re-signed for 4 years, 100 million, like I would be cheering about that. I wouldn't be upset, but I also, that is a little rich. So hopefully it's a little cheaper than that. But I also like, if you have to, like, there's got to be a line somewhere. Like you can't, like, this is probably the line right here. Like you're not going to go above this. So if it does get into a bidding war, you're probably just, better off moving on and kind of finding the next Teoscar.
Yeah, I think for me, 3 years, like 85 million is probably, if it needs to go past that, I think I'm probably going to say, okay, we can't really, like, thank you, Teoscar, for helping us win a World Series. Like, happy that it's turned into this for you. He bet on himself to sign the 1-year deal with the Dodgers. Sebastian, where's your line that you maybe don't see, that you wouldn't go past?
Yeah, I would this would probably be my line, like Daniel said, but the way I see it, if that's what it takes to sign him, you do that. It's all dependent on where, I think if the Dodgers are willing to, like, just eat that 4th year and just, like, maybe, like, trade him, like, and, like, eat his salary or whatever, like, you're willing to, like, if they're willing to do that, to eat that last year for, like, 3 years of production, I think that would make sense. That's the advantage of baseball. There's, like, if there's the NFL, a whole totally different story. You did not overpay in the NFL. It's a different sport altogether, though, like, as well, because football is, like, much more physically demanding. Careers aren't that long. But this is the advantage of baseball, where as long as you're willing to pay the tax, you could just burn some money if that's what the situation calls for. So it's just depending on how much the Dodgers are willing to kind of dish out.
Yeah, and I think the not the ironic thing, but the reality at this point is, my guess is, to sign Teoscar Hernandez, whether it's the Dodgers, Red Sox, Yankees, it's probably going to take a 4th year. And I think going into it, the Dodgers were probably hoping they could do it with 3. And I'm assuming, but if that was the case, I feel like maybe they should have just jumped out ahead of it and not stuck with the Juan Soto train as long as they did. Like, look, I get Juan Soto's a great player, and Jeff called him a generational player on our live show Sunday night, and everybody in the chat corrected him and said he's a generational hitter. So I'll see if I get some of that pushback tonight. I get at least checking in with Juan Soto, seeing maybe where it goes. But once it was pretty clear that it has been relatively clear, as I mentioned, for about the past week or so, that the bidding for Juan Soto was getting into 700 million plus, and the Dodgers, every report was that the Dodgers weren't at that level, that they were still involved but not bidding as high. I felt like they just should have pivoted and said, okay, like, we're out on Juan Soto. We're going to go take care of Teoscar Hernandez. Maybe at that point you do get it for 3 years, or maybe it would have been too late already. Who knows? But yeah, I do think that 4 years is probably what it's going to end up taking for Teoscar Hernandez. And I'm not necessarily sure. Yeah, Blake saying Teoscar probably wanted to wait. Takes 2 to make. Yeah, that could have been a factor as well. And I mean, if you want to trace it back even further, and maybe Teoscar wasn't interested in it, like, I'm a little surprised that the Dodgers never discussed an extension with him during the season, because he seemed to, like, he was having a great year. He went through some lulls, every player does, but he was asked about it during the NLDS, like, were there extension talks during the year? And he said, no, not at all. That was a little surprising to me. And so now here we are, and everybody's waiting to see. If Teoscar Hernandez doesn't sign with the Dodgers, I wonder who is going to be stuck doing the live show, because they're going to get a very angry crowd. And I'm going to, since Jeff isn't here with us tonight, we're going to say that Jeff has volunteered to take that one. He wants to talk everybody off the ledge. All right.
That
we have a
sounds like
couple
something
super
Jeff would
chats.
say.
We have a couple super chats. So let's get to those. I apologize for the delay. And as we're going through these, we're also going to open it up to questions for you guys. So as a reminder, if you could just start it with the word question in all caps, it makes it easier for us to pick out. If you want to guarantee that yours gets read and you're with us on YouTube, super chat is the way to go for that. That's what Francisco Diaz did. And he said, what worries me about Teo is how Alden Gonzalez says the negotiations have been going on for weeks. I get the promise they made to show, but Teo should have been taken care of immediately. I mean, yeah, I do feel that way. Blake did remind me that it does take 2 to get a contract done. I mean, yeah, there's it. Look, it still could end up with Teoscar Hernandez on the Dodgers. Like, it's not like he has signed anywhere yet. It's not even been reported that he's on the verge of signing with a different team and the Dodgers are out. So they're still involved. Still could end up. Teoscar Hernandez has been very open about wanting to stay with the team, and so I think that does come with some value. My guess is it would probably take 15 to 20 million more, maybe for the Red Sox, the Yankees, or some other team to be able to pull him away. And or Daniel, you said maybe the fourth year is the biggest difference. So yeah, we'll see where that goes. But Francisco, thank you for that super chat. Our next one, Some Kind of Wonderful, says the leadership and vibes can't be replaced. Signed Teo. Yeah, Sebastian, is there any? We've discussed a lot of kind of right-handed bat lineup stuff, production. What about the clubhouse aspect and kind of the connection that Teoscar Hernandez made with his teammates?
Yeah, I think he is an important aspect of it, but I think it's a lot bigger than one player. I think they've been cultivating this kind of culture and the leadership in the clubhouse for almost close to 10 years under Dave Roberts. I think it will hurt if he leaves, but I think it is, like I said, bigger than one player. I think they'll be fine if he does walk. They have plenty of leaders in that clubhouse already. Yeah.
All right, let's get to our next super chat. It's from Zenji. Roki was posted today. How are we feeling on our chances? So yeah, Roki Sasaki officially posted, can start negotiating officially with teams at 2 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday. I almost thought we were at Tuesday already, but no, it's Monday. Week is just beginning. So Tuesday afternoon, he can start discussing terms with teams and meeting with them and all that. Daniel, this is something that we've discussed for multiple months now. I think you've been pretty optimistic about the Dodgers' chances. Dave Roberts today declined to discuss it. Mike Schilt, Padres manager, took a completely different approach and said, we are confident and these are the reasons why. So where's your confidence right now?
Yeah, it seems like Dave Roberts is learning, from the past. It feels like, although they did end up getting Shohei, so he didn't stick his foot in his mouth too much. But, it feels like this is going to be the new Soto discussion for the next month or so, and until the middle of January when he could sign. But I think what's interesting about the whole Sasaki thing is you could literally say all 30 teams are in it just because money is not a factor here, and of course you could already cross out like half the teams probably just because he's not going to go to certain teams, which is understandable. But I think the Dodgers are the favorites, but I don't think if you gave me the field or the Dodgers, I think I would take the field. But if you gave me like just one team, if you said pick which one team you think he's going to end on, I still think the Dodgers are the favorites there. And I know the Padres, like you said, Mike Schilt is confident and they have Yu Darvish and whatnot, but I still think, if he wants to win World Series, if he wants to make as much money off the field as possible, if he wants to play with Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, like there's only one place he could do that, and that's in LA with the Dodgers, which of course LA has a big, Japanese community. It's on the West, coast, so closer to Japan. So literally every box that he could possibly want to check, like the Dodgers fill that. So it makes all the sense in the world. But I do think at the end of the day, like, we don't really know this guy and we don't know what he wants. So it is kind of hard to predict.
So are you going out on a limb and saying the Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas Athletics are not going to be considered by Roki Sasaki? Is that what you're saying right now?
I mean, they did say they're kind of starting to go for it, or they've signaled, with their recent signings. But I don't know if he'll be intrigued by going and playing in Sacramento in a minor league ballpark. So I do. When I said, half the teams are out, I would put them in that category for sure.
All right. Stockton Slap has a couple super chats. This first one is saying, why are we messing around with Betts at shortstop? Lame. Stockton, if you missed it at the beginning of the show, we kind of dove into a lot of that with Mookie playing shortstop. I don't want to completely rehash it for the people who've been with us. They're going to say we sound like a broken record and we're boring them. But basically, Dodgers don't have a ton of other options right now to play that position. They do want to move Mookie Betts into the infield to preserve his body and physically keep him healthy, hopefully for the rest of his contract with the team. As the three of us, Daniel, Sebastian, and myself sort of mentioned, like shortstop isn't really the way that we would think you would go about doing that. But if this is just a 1-year thing, maybe a 2-year, I don't want to call it experiment, but decision, then it's something that the Dodgers can certainly get away with. But that's the Cliff Notes answer. If you want to just, once we're done here, rewind the video or just start it from the very beginning, you'll get kind of more of the in-depth stuff. The other super chat from Stockton is saying losing both Hernandezes in the clubhouse is dangerous. Yes. Again, I mean, Teoscar hasn't signed yet. I know that, there's some concern, and the three of us expressed that. Kike, I think, is still a safe bet to come back, whether or not Teoscar. I would say that if Teoscar isn't re-signed, that it makes Kike a little bit more likely, marginally, not a whole lot, but I think a little bit more likely, because I do think the Dodgers recognize and value the clubhouse stuff that a lot of people have brought up tonight. Another super chat from David. It says, cleaning staff won't miss Teo. No more sunflower seeds. JK. He brings a very positive attitude to the team. Sebastian, I saw Jeff tweeting. He tweeted earlier today asking if there was a player who endeared himself to the fan base more than Teoscar Hernandez did kind of in his first season. First, and I don't want to say only season, but his, first new to the team, the franchise and all that. Anybody else come to mind for the impact Teoscar Hernandez had?
For me personally, it'd be Hanley. That was like the first person that popped into my head. Yeah. I mean, if we're going like extremely brief, probably like Luis Cruz too, but that was like a kind of brief thing, but definitely more Hanley.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good choice. All right, let's get to some of these questions that we had. Brianna wants to know who else is a right-handed bat that we can get, and this was something that I did want to ask you guys as we were discussing Teoscar Hernandez. If it's not Teoscar Hernandez and the Dodgers were to, let's keep it free agency, because there's always trade possibilities that we don't necessarily know about. Is there an outfielder out there that maybe comes to mind for either of you guys? And I know I'm sort of putting you on the spot here, so I apologize. One for me, I texted to you earlier today, Daniel. I said Ramon Laureano. Yeah. Like it was half joking, but like half serious, just because I feel like some of his profile fits what the Dodgers would maybe be looking for at that point. Is that your same pick?
I think he makes some sense. I was actually, when we were having that discussion earlier, I was looking up, some free agent outfielders, just because I honestly, our mind has been so focused on Teoscar. I haven't really even, looked to see what else is out there. I've seen some people on Twitter today were mentioning Randall Grichuk, who is coming off a really good year, with Arizona. I know Jeff was joking around about Andrew McCutchen. He's a little old, but he had a decent year as well. And I think it was Jeff maybe mentioned Harrison Bader, which if you're looking for a center field option, he doesn't give you much with the bat, but he is a really good defensive center fielder. But I guess now with the news today that Mookie's probably going to play short, like, getting a center fielder isn't necessarily as important just because you have Edman out there. But overall, like it's not necessarily the best options on the free agent market. Like you could look to the trade market. Maybe you go for a Luis Robert, who might be available, from the White Sox. He's another center fielder, but if he has a bounce back season, that could be a dangerous addition to the lineup. So, we'll see what happens with Teoscar first, and then if they have to pivot, they will. But it's mainly like cheaper options, unless I don't see them going for Santander. So outside of Teoscar, it's probably going to be, a notch or two below.
Matty Man is saying that I'm a better hitter than Bader. I appreciate the confidence, but I regret to inform you that I was a glove first shortstop and lights out pitcher back in my day. So the bat was never my carrying card, unfortunately. Another super chat from Stockton. Thank you. I know you're always pretty active with these. He wants to know Muncy to second and Arenado to third. Is that possible? It is worth adding that Brandon Gomes said today that Max Muncy is the Dodgers' opening day third baseman. I'm also old enough to remember Farhan Zaidi saying D. Gordon is our second baseman, and I believe he was traded like 48 hours later. Sebastian, is this something that would interest you? Maybe moving Muncy to second base and trading for Nolan Arenado?
Yeah, no, it's a really unpopular opinion with Arenado right now amongst the people. I personally wouldn't do it just because I was really impressed by Muncy's defense last season, especially in the playoffs. There was a couple he was really active on defense. There's a couple of short hops. He made really tough plays. And as a former third baseman, like some of the plays that he made, I was like, oh man, I hated doing those during practice because it's like the in between hops are the worst. Where you kind of have to, you don't lunge at it, but you kind of got to scoop it. Like he made it look effortless, which was like a really nice change from years prior. You could really tell that he did put in a lot of work. So I personally wouldn't do it. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense with Arenado's contract.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Muncy did make some pretty significant strides defensively this year, and it was good to see. I know that was a focus for him last offseason, so for that to sort of play out this year was certainly encouraging. All right, let's see. Oh, real quick, not a question, but just an opinion says, by the way, that Christmas tree in the background is fire. So, Sebastian, we all have the same colored walls, but your Christmas tree is helping save us tonight. Let's see, what else do we have? Kenneth Hall wants to know, are the Dodgers going to sign another pitcher besides Roki? Which, again, the Sasaki thing is not a given. But assuming they do sign Sasaki, Daniel, is there another starter that you see the Dodgers still looking to bring in?
Well, number 22 is going to have to be re-signed at some point.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it probably depends on Roki, I guess. Like, I think if they re-sign Roki and Kershaw, they probably feel pretty good about their depth. But if they don't end up, getting Roki, then they probably look to bring in one more starter, like, not an ace level necessarily. We'll see, where Walker Buehler ends up. Like, similar to Teoscar, it feels like he's, it's trending towards him leaving, where he might get, bigger offers elsewhere. I would personally love to have Walker Buehler back. I know Blake is probably he's typing right now furiously in the chat saying that's a bad idea, but I think Walker would be, in a world where you don't get, Roki, I think Walker would be perfect, but he's probably not going to wait another month to sign. He probably wants to sign soon. So you might just have to wait out Roki and then bring in like an innings eater type, later in the offseason for cheaper, I guess.
Yeah, Blake actually just texted me saying his dream scenario is Sasaki, Kershaw, and Buehler all in the Dodgers rotation next year. So, Blake, he was in here in the chat earlier. I'm not sure what happened. We'll have to.
He's going to say he was hacked, I think.
We'll have to get the admin to check in on him, and if Blake does refute that in the chat, I think yes, he would have been hacked, because I have the text that I just read to you guys, and that's all you need to know. Scooter Booter says, do you see the Dodgers trading top prospects or more so ready level talent for a trade with Devin Williams? If you missed it a little while ago, Devin Williams, Ken Rosenthal was reporting that there are up to 10 teams that are interested in him. So it certainly would take a significant haul, it looks like. We kind of discussed this a little bit earlier. The three of us, I think, agree, and correct me if I'm wrong, either one of you, that we probably don't see the Dodgers going too heavily into trading any significant prospects or anything, because Devin Williams is only under team control for one more year.
Yeah, I honestly thought like it was a good fit and they'd be in on him, and then right as we were talking about it, that Rosenthal report comes out that there's 10 interested teams, and I just don't see the Dodgers getting in like a bidding war there. So yeah. I don't see it.
Scooter Booter, no need to apologize for anything. It's fine. Just didn't. I was more clarifying and referencing that we did discuss it so that you wouldn't feel like we're shortchanging you on an answer here and not trying to give it our usual attention. Miguel Ramirez wants to know, do you think that Roki has a verbal agreement after he talks with other teams, but before he officially signs? This was something I brought up with Jeff on Sunday night. It wouldn't shock me if Sasaki makes his decision before January 15th, and either it leaks or it doesn't, and then he officially signs once the 2025 international signing period opens. So, I mean, look, he's being posted. If he already has made his mind up at home, then tomorrow, once he's free to negotiate with teams, I'm not expecting this, but he technically could say, I'm just going to meet with the Dodgers. I'm just going to meet with the Padres. That's the team I know I'm going to sign with. Nothing's going to change my mind, and that's it. And he can go enjoy the rest of December or first couple of weeks of January and then make it official next year. But I anticipate that we will get, he's meeting with the Dodgers, the Padres, the Rangers, probably the usual suspects, as Daniel informed us, not the Oakland, Sacramento, Las Vegas A's, but, probably a bevy of teams to see who he's going to end up signing.
I'm going to go on record and say the Colorado Rockies are also on the outside looking into that mix. Just want to be on record with that.
There we go. We're building the list of teams that Sasaki will not be signing with. Okay, I think we have one or two more. If you guys have any final questions, get them in. Just remember, start with the word question in all caps. We have about 10, 15 more minutes to keep doing this with everybody. Signs Teeling Scandal says, what's more overrated, I think, instead of, or maybe he does mean
overhated.
Yeah. Is that a term that people are using now?
I don't know.
Like, sort of.
Guess like hating to a
it gets too much
egregious extent.
More hate than it deserves.
Okay, all right, Sebastian, thank you. You're keeping us young here. What's more overhated? 900 OPS second half Gavin Lux or 4 WAR rookie year James Outman? And Sebastian, since you gave us the great context for this, I'll let you answer this question.
Oh man, I don't know. Gavin got hot for a minute there, and he kind of won some people over.
I feel like it's Lux, personally.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I feel like James Outman was kind of a fan favorite until he kind of fell off a cliff, towards the end of that season. So I don't think anyone really has that strong of emotions towards James Outman, like either way. So I do think, considering the second half that Lux had, I do think he's kind of being overhated a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree.
All right. Yeah. There you go. And I learned a new phrase, overhated. I'm going to try it on my younger nieces and nephews and see if they think I'm cool, if I know kind of their lingo, if this is something that's going
on. You got to be rock solid sure.
Yeah.
Whenever you bring it out.
I'm going to sell it. I'm going to do a hard sell, and it's going to make it seem like I know what I'm talking about. All right. We have some good questions here, but we got a super chat from Zenji, so let's jump to that one. It says, Gomes said today that the end of the season was more important for pitching for show than the beginning. Could you see us holding Glass now until June? No, I don't see the Dodgers delaying Glass now that late. I think if he is, it's just because of an injury issue that we saw shut him down for most of the second half of 2024. Yeah, I mean, Sebastian, do you see the Dodgers like consciously making a decision to hold out Tyler Glass now until June?
Yeah, I don't think they'd willingly make that. It probably just, like you said, it'd have to do with injury.
Yeah. Linda says Walker Buehler is overhated by Blake. Yes, that is Linda.
That's like if someone says use it in a sentence, that's the perfect sentence right there.
There we go. Thank you for that, Linda. That was great. All right, let's see. Alleluia 1 says, are we sure that Cohen wants to be the Dodgers of the East and not the Padres? And then he has kind of a laughing emoji. Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned it earlier. It was a little interesting to see no criticism of the Mets for giving that contract out to Juan Soto. Yes, there are fans, and I've sat here and said, I wouldn't have done that type of deal. But nothing like when the Dodgers sign, heaven forbid they decide to stay within the CBA guidelines and defer a little bit of money. They're the ones that are ruining baseball. So yeah, that's been interesting. The reaction has been interesting to see. Not lost on me, the differences between everything. Stockton Slap, another super chat. Who is our opening day starter this year? I feel like we've been asked this a couple times. We know it won't be Shohei Ohtani. I'll go Yamamoto opening day. I do. And with the current roster, if Sasaki is on the team, then I think he starts the second game. But as it is now, Yamamoto gets opening day, and I think Snell gets the second game.
I couldn't agree more. I also think the fact that they're playing in Japan probably plays into that as well. Like, if you're deciding between game 1 or 2 for Yamamoto, just give him the start in game 1 in his home country. That would be awesome. So I think as long as Yamamoto's healthy, it'll probably be him.
Yeah, just makes too much sense.
Yeah, and that's what the chat is agreeing with us. All right, let's answer a few more questions here. Let's see. Vinny says, who will have more stolen bases, Shohei in 2025 or Soto through the duration of his contract? And he provides us with the stat that Soto has 57 career stolen bases.
This is a trick question, just because I think Shohei is going to steal significantly less in 2025 just because he's going to be pitching, and obviously we saw what happened in the playoffs. We don't want a repeat of that, sliding into second base and getting hurt. So I think he's going to steal significantly less, but I also think it still might be more than Soto, just because I don't see Soto stealing many bases for the rest of his career. Like, he got his check. He knows what he's getting paid to do, and that's hit the ball really far. And I don't think he's going to be stealing many bases. So it might be like a 20-17 type deal, you know, something like that. But I'll say Shohei, just because I'm going to pick Shohei for everything.
Sebastian, is that your choice also, or do you think Soto maybe pulls off an upset?
Yeah, no, I was pretty much gonna say what Daniel said. Like, I don't think he's gonna be doing as much stealing over the next whatever long of his contract, but Soto's not really a guy you think of base stealers, so I think Shohei probably still find a way to come out on top there.
All right, real quick, over under Ohtani stolen bases in 2025. I'll say 22 and a half.
I was gonna say 20. I'll probably go under.
Okay.
I'll take slightly over. I'll say like 24 or so.
Okay. I think he ends up like at 21 or 22.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll be interesting to see. All right. A few more here. Elishiba Jones wants to know if there's update on the Dodger Stadium construction. Not a whole lot. Dave Roberts did say that he hopes that it's going to get done in time for the Dodgers home opener next season, that they might be cutting it a little bit close, but that they are working basically around the clock. And so, you know, they're working to get that done. Stockton Slap, thank you for this next super chat. It says Soto's contract was worse than Andrew Jones' contract. I think, Stockton, you should have saved this super chat for when Jeff was hosting, because Jeff is not letting go of the Andrew Jones contract with the Dodgers for some reason. He's still very upset about that. I get the sentiment. It's kind of funny to laugh at. I don't necessarily agree, but Jeff, I think, would agree with you. All right. I think we have a couple more here, and then we'll shut this off. Again, if you do have a super chat, then we'll definitely be sure to get to those. But if not, I think we're going to answer two more and then sign off for the night. Josh says, who do you see as the most likely outcome? What do you see as the most likely outcome for Bobby Miller's 2025 season? Sebastian, what do you think Bobby Miller can is he going to bounce back? Is it going to be a little inconsistent? Is it going to be a repeat of this year? Where do you see things falling for him?
Yeah, I think he's kind of the wild card in all this. Kind of adding another. So say they get Sasaki, he's kind of like that wild card, and Sasaki and Kershaw, he's kind of like that wild card of, do the Dodgers add another arm? For me personally, what I'd like to see is maybe move him to the bullpen if you're not able to get like Tanner Scott or something. Get him in the bullpen, kind of get his confidence back up, see what he can do from there. Obviously, but you don't want to lose out on you don't ever convert a starter to a reliever this early. So probably start him in the minor leagues, and then maybe if he looks good there, I think you then move him to the bullpen, just kind of, well, depending on how the rotation health looks. But I would like to see him in the bullpen, just get his confidence back up at the major league level, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think what you hit on is the minor league aspect. I see Bobby Miller, assuming, again, knock on wood, that the Dodgers have enough healthy starters to begin the season. I wouldn't be shocked if he's in the minors. Daniel, what do you see for Bobby Ice next season?
Really hard guy to predict, just because we know the talent is there. So like, if you told me he bounced back and had a season similar to the season before, 2023, like, that wouldn't surprise me. And it also wouldn't surprise me if he has a repeat of last year. I'd say probably closer to last year than 2023, unfortunately. But I still believe in the talent. It's just a lot of the mental makeup. I'm not exactly sure if he has what it takes. But like you guys said, he's probably going to start the year in the minors. And we'll kind of see what he does with that. And knowing the Dodgers, guys are going to get hurt and they're going to need bodies. So he'll get his opportunity at one point. So we'll see what he could kind of do with it.
Yeah. We have another super chat from Stockton. It says, Andrew Jones or Darren Dreifert worse, or Kevin Brown? Daniel, of those three, which was the worst contract for the Dodgers?
He's bringing up all these, bad contracts, giving me PTSD over here. Kevin Brown was pretty bad, but I think Andrew Jones is probably the worst, just because he was like literally almost unplayable pretty much. So I'll go with him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, couple more here. Normally, what's the insistence with Betts at shortstop, where he struggled defensively and admitted had affected him at the plate? It's a dumb move by a smart club. Norm, we did open with this, so our full kind of answers and analysis are there if you want to just rewind this video once we're done. Basically, the gist of it is the Dodgers don't really have any other options. They did plan to move Mookie Betts in. Well, I guess we're saying they don't have options. Tommy Edman could play shortstop, although I do like him in center field more than shortstop, and I'm assuming the Dodgers probably feel the same way, considering that is the case with Betts. Considering their decision with Betts to have him play there. But yeah, that's the short of it. But like I said, if you rewind to the beginning of this video, you'll get our full answers. Here's an interesting one from Norm also. It says, who has had the better offseason at this point, the Dodgers or the Mets? Sebastian, which team are you picking?
Mets have just what have most of the Mets done? Just Soto?
Frankie
Holmes, and Montes. Frankie Montes.
Yeah. And Clay Holmes, who they're converting to a starter.
Yeah.
I mean, if it works out as good as Clay Holmes as it did for the Padres, that could be really interesting for them. But I still like the Dodgers where they're at. You know, you get what you didn't. They're talented enough as it is, right? And you add Blake Snell and, you know, hopefully some other pieces. So, I mean, obviously the Mets have added more people and talented people at that. So you kind of would like to say Mets, but I like the Dodgers offseason.
Yeah, I mean, at the risk of us being called homers, I'm going to pick the Dodgers also. Daniel, is one of these teams had a better offseason in your eyes?
Well, I think it's a little early to judge, and I know we all know that. Well, of course, more moves are going to be made by both teams, but I do think you have to look at who the Mets have lost as well, which they haven't lost anyone yet because they could always re-sign guys, but like Severino is not in their rotation anymore. Sean Manaea is not in their rotation as of now. Like Soto basically, replaced Pete Alonso, which that is an upgrade, but it's not like, night and day. Like Pete Alonso is a middle of the order bat. So as of right now, the Mets, I tweeted this, kind of when someone, Fox Sports or whatever tweeted out the Mets projected lineup as of now. And I was like, they still got some work to do. And you look at that rotation, they got some work to do as well. So I'll take the Dodgers offseason. We'll see if they're able to re-sign Teo and kind of, put that little cherry on top, I guess you could say. But so far, I really liked all the moves the Dodgers have made.
Yeah, Eden's reminding me that we need balance on this show. I completely agree, Eden, and I usually am the one to bring that balance to our live streams. But tonight, it was an objective choice of, I think the Dodgers have had a better offseason so far.
And that's what we have Blake in the chat for. So that's balance.
That's true. Yeah, Blake is the balance tonight. He's fighting everybody about Walker Buehler, and what's he's over hating on Walker Buehler is what the kids are telling me.
There you go.
I didn't sell that one that confident though. Stockton slap another super chat. Daniel, you'll appreciate this one. The Rams are back. Sebastian, right. one of the Raiders fans on our staff. Close your ears and eyes. Daniel, you can do a little bragging about the Rams right now.
I'm sure Sebastian is happy as well because the Raiders with who was it? The Jaguars won, so the Raiders have the #1 pick now. So they're where they want to be at the moment as well. But yeah, that was
the elegant tank.
Probably the game of the NFL season. Rams Bills on Sunday. That was a fun one. I'm not going as far as this commenter saying the Rams are back. We'll see. They play the Niners on Thursday night, so I guess we'll wait till after that game to declare them back.
It's all right. I was excited too. I had Puka Nacua in my fantasy lineup, so
there you go.
I was celebrating right along with you, Daniel.
There you go.
All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight. We did have this final super chat from Genji. He says, "We're still champs, y'all." I'm not going to shout it the way Jeff does. That's his that's his thing. So I'll just read it in my monotone voice that I try to change for you guys so that you don't get too bored. But yeah, I mean, I think it is an important reminder. The Dodgers did win the World Series this year. They did add Blake Snell. It addressed one of their big needs. I know we just spent a lot of time discussing Teoscar Hernandez and the possibilities of him moving on to another team and what it would mean for the Dodgers. Hasn't happened yet. So until that shoe falls, there's still a chance for, as Daniel said, the Dodgers to put their the cherry on top of their offseason. And then, fast forward about a month from now, we'll be able to kind of maybe recap everything and look at the full landscape of what's happened. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for tuning in. We had over 4,000 people join us tonight on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. This is kind of an impromptu, not scheduled live show. So thank you. We appreciate the support you guys continue to show us. Jeff and Anthony will be back on Tuesday night. I believe they do 7:10 on Tuesdays. The time might get adjusted a little bit depending on what's happening with the winter meetings, just because stuff we didn't get. Although we did get the Ken Rosenthal update, but nothing too crazy tonight. But it does tend to break kind of at odd times, so we might adjust a little bit there. We'll see then about Wednesday. And then Blake and Scott will definitely be back with you guys on Thursday night. And that will be kind of the end of the winter meetings. And not that business certainly stopped, but it might slow down for a little bit as we get closer to the holiday season. But yeah, if you're on YouTube, and even if you're not, take some time to head over to our YouTube channel at Dodger Blue 1958. Subscribe, ring the notification bell, like this video, like the channel, all that good stuff. We have a bunch of content up. We have a lot more planned throughout the week, and so if you have your notifications on, you'll be alerted for when we schedule live streams, for when we put up new videos. Jeff and Daniel covered a bunch of rumors this morning in 2 separate videos for you guys, so definitely check those out. Sebastian is he's on these. He's part of our big writing staff and keeping the website current and updated with a bunch of news for you guys every single day. DodgerBlue.com. You of course already all know that, but yeah. Just thank you again for joining us tonight. That's Sebastian, that's Daniel, and I'm Matthew, and we will see you next time.